Okay, let me minimize this one. Okay, welcome to the IIBA Tampa Bay, Florida chapter study group this is the last one in May of 2022. This is our 36th consecutive class. Our mission here is to bridge the gap between industry leaders and business analysts by building partnerships with professionals, educators, and employers so that we may empower, instruct, and engage the Tampa Bay IT community. As you know, we go far beyond the Tampa Bay community. We actually are the Northern Florida chapter, as well as we have people from all over the world joining our chapter because of our study groups, as well as our outreach, our networking, our mentoring, helping people with resumes, helping people understand the different certifications, and networking to help people get jobs. That is who we are, what we do. We have a variety of ways that you can reach us. Of course, you have joined us at the BABOK study group here. It's Tuesday between 7 and 8 Eastern. We also have our meetup and Zoom online. Our past meeting recordings are at this highlighted address here. The IIBA website, our own website, we have Meetup, Facebook, and 2 different LinkedIn groups. If you want to reach us, you should be able to reach us through almost any of these. However, as you know, we are a volunteer sponsored organization. All of the people that are doing the work here are volunteers. We don't get paid, but we do this because we love to provide service. Cliff is online with us right now. He is our president. Lori is our vice president of finance. We've got Caitlin and Priscilla as board members at large. My name is Thea Raisins. I am the vice president of career and professional development. You can see my LinkedIn ID right here. If you want to contact me, this is the fastest way to do it. And Tiffany occasionally will step in to help us teach a class. The most important person in the room is Bob Churchill. He has earned his CBAP certification as well as his IIBA CBDA, his PMP from Project Management International, the CSM, the CSPO, the CSD, his Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, and a whole bunch of other stuff that he was just modest enough not to have to put it all on this. You can reach him at RP Churchill. He has a blog site that has hundreds of pages of really good content, far beyond just business analysis. He's got mechanical engineering and project management and Six Sigma and Lean and quite a number of other things. You can also reach him directly at this email address. He is very receptive and happy to answer your questions. I keep attendance on these so that whenever you attend one of our classes, we can say, yes, you did attend. That 1 hour, because Bob is here, you get education credit. That education credit is vital whenever you apply for your CBAP certification or any of the other tests within PMI or IIBA to be considered to be able to take a test. You have to have a certain number of education hours to be able to take a test. And depending on which test it is, it's a different number of hours. So we do a screenshot of the attendees. Please do participate, reach in, ask questions, tell of situations that you have experienced some of these techniques, and let us know that you're actually paying attention. Otherwise, it becomes a 2 or 3 person show, and we don't get the benefit of hearing you say, I used that and I found it beneficial here, but it didn't give us benefit here where I expected it to. And we can have a conversation and bring everybody value. Our current study has been going through the techniques chapter of the BABOK. And as you can see, we've gone through a whole lot of these. We have dates beside most of them of when we went through it. So if you'd like to go back and look at that particular recording, you can. Let me do full screen mode here. But tonight we are going to go through 2 or 3, depending on how long it takes. We're going to start with Ben-Hur going through the business rules analysis. And then we're going to switch over to Bob Churchill going through decision modeling. And if we have time, we'll go through business capability analysis with Ben-Hur again. So before I keep talking and lose my voice, because for some reason my voice is getting scratchy. I'm going to turn it over to Ben and let you take the screen and talk about your first topic.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Thank
Do
you.
you want my camera on, or do you want the camera off?
The camera isn't as important as sharing your screen.
All right. I just want to make sure. But in general, during the meetings, do you want the camera on or off? I know some people they have rules and regulations.
We don't have rules. We prefer to see you. We prefer to see everybody. That way we know that you're paying attention, not sleeping, not doing something else, you know, that stuff.
Oh, I see. I mean, I have two laptops.
Totally cool. Whatever you do is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem. I can turn my camera on. I mean, I have a different laptop. Just on this laptop, my camera doesn't work. So I have a different laptop I can turn on. That's one reason I don't turn on my camera. It's not because I don't want to. I'm not hiding anything or anything.
That's okay. Let's
Anyways.
just get to the presentation.
Got it.
Thank you.
Can you guys see the screen?
We can. Thank you.
Yes, we can.
So, all right. So today oh, there you go. Again, I want to just introduce myself. My name is Ben Hur. Those that don't know me yet, I'm a recent graduate from George Mason University. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in information technology and a minor in business. I have vast experience in IT, and I'm very passionate about becoming a business analyst. I really love the field, and I see myself growing in that field, and I love it. Like it's something I'm very passionate about. So today I'm going to be presenting business capability analysis and business rules analysis. And I hope at the end of my presentation, you guys have a better understanding what business capability analysis does and what business rules analysis are. All right, so the general definition of business capability analysis, it involves modeling what a business does and what it needs to do to achieve its objectives and how it achieves via process and people. The results of such analysis can deliver value to the business in areas of reduced cost, improve customer service, increase turnaround time, to mention a few. And having a solid grasp of the capabilities of the business can help maintain competitive edge in delivering a unique value proposition to customers. So what exactly is business capability analysis? Business capability analysis is the assessment of individual business capabilities in an integrated set of enterprise business capabilities. The models to evaluate the strategies of importance, business process maturity, resource adequacy, level of IT support, and cost factors. Its capability is about evaluating the capabilities of the business requirements, whatever the business project is, and what it does and what it can do in strategic and operational contexts. So this is a definition I got straight from BABOK. I know you want, I mean, the previous information was BABOK oriented, but this is the exact definition. So I'll read it out loud. Business capabilities describes the ability of an enterprise to act on or transform something that helps achieve a business goal or objective. The BABOK guide states, capabilities may be assessed for performance and associated risks to identify specific performance gaps and prioritize investments. If an enterprise continues to perform similar functions, the capabilities required by the enterprise should remain constant, even if the method of execution for those capabilities undergoes significant changes. Let's analyze business capability. There are several elements of business capability and analysis, including capabilities using capabilities of performance, expectations, risk model, strategic planning, capability maps, and more. The BABOK guide defines business capability analysis as what an enterprise or part of an enterprise has the ability to do. BABOK guide is an invaluable resource for business analysis professionals. It is a global recognized standard for the practice of business analysis, guiding professionals in their work and adopted by enterprise to achieve better business outcomes. And I exactly remember from on our lessons, like when you do certification exams, you want the answer straight from BABOK guide, you know, the exact answer what BABOK is, or whatever the definition, whatever the question is. So that's when we got with that, put that on there. What are the key elements? The key elements are using capabilities, performance expectations, risk model, or strategic planning, and capability maps. So this is an example I have of business capability, right? This is a product company. It's called Action Info. It has a range of software products for the oil and gas industry. So what can we say about its capabilities? The capability for Action could be product support, product sales, etc. And this is a breakdown of sales and marketing, product development, human resources. Just an image how the business capabilities are of the software product company acts. So this is an example of the company's complete breakdown. You can, once you really, you read something and you see a visual picture. I'm a visual learner, and when I see it, I'm able to comprehend it. Oh yeah, that makes sense. This is what a business capability looks like. It's a good example, a breakdown of acts of software product company. Simple terms. Business capability analysis describes what the business can do. It can be done to assess performance, determine the risk areas of the business, and prioritize investments, especially in terms of time, effort, and money. Business rules analysis. The basic principle for business analysis: always seek to ask the right questions in the right way of the right people at the right time. It's a good rule, man. Always seek to ask the right question in the right way of the right people at the right time. So that's, when you, like, I feel like when someone asks, good questions, they're displaying competency. And when you display competency, that means you understand what the material is, what the project is, or what the content is. So, there's no stupid question, but
I want to interrupt
good
here.
thought,
We just switched topics, and I want people to realize we just switched topics.
Oh, okay. I didn't mention that. Sorry if I missed
Okay,
that.
it's okay. I just
so
want,
I
I
switched
don't
over
want
to
people to think it's the same topic any longer, but go
okay,
ahead.
Yeah, I apologize. It's
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Business rules. So I'm going over business rules analysis. So what's the basic principle for business analysis? Always seek to ask the right question in the right way, the right people at the right time. So this is an image I got from BABOK. I just copied and pasted it. It's a model of business analysis competency model. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. I thought I have it here. Method of business analysis professionals use to perform business analysis tasks. So it has a lot to do with, the capabilities, assessing capabilities, the competency models, the knowledge area. So it's really good, complete breakdown. Like once I really I did my research and I understood what business rules are, what business capabilities are, this made a lot more sense. Like when I saw this, I was like, I'm able to understand it and then comprehend it, what I mean? The complete breakdown. So this is a really, really good example. You guys can see that. You guys can. So next. There you go. Okay. So I'm going more in depth to business rules analysis. Business rules analysis is used to identify, express, validate, refine, and organize the rules that shape up day-to-day business behavior and guide operational business decision making. Straight definition from BABOK. So this is a breakdown of what are business rules, directives that serve as a criteria to guide behavior, shape judgments, make decisions. What is their resource? It may be explicit, found in document policies, regulations, and contracts. May also be tactically found in undocumented stakeholders, know-how, generally accepted business practices, and norms of corporate culture. And what are the attributes? Business rules should be specific, testable, explicit, clear, accessible, single sourced, practicable, no need to further interpretation. So this is a good good breakdown. What are business rules? What are their sources? What are the attributes?
I want to note there, can you go back to the last screen?
Yep.
Undocumented stakeholder know-how. This is one of the biggest things as business analysts we have to find, because it's not something people say, well, here's what you need to know about this topic. They just kind of know it so deeply that they don't know to tell you. And it's your job to figure out where the holes are and pull it out.
Interesting point you made there. That's true.
You may find a business rule to be something like the president is not available on Monday afternoon because he goes golfing. That's a business rule for that particular company. Or a business rule may be customers that spend more than $10,000 a month get free, get on this free program that they get stuff delivered to their house free or something like that. Those would be business rules, but they're not always documented. It's like they have it in practice, and you need to document it as a business analyst and put it in a place where people can see it so everybody can agree that this is the rule we all follow. Please continue, Ben. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So general principles for business rules. Now, the good point is you made there. I mean, when you really explain it, you can be understanding better. So I'm starting out in BA, so you have way more experience than I do. So I appreciate that. Business rules analysis, general principles for business rules, base them on standard business vocabulary, express them separately from how they will be enforced, state them authentically and declaratively, map them to decisions, the rule, map them to decisions, the rule support or constraints, maintain them so they can be monitored and adapted. Feedback is always welcome. I mean, feel free to ask questions. If you guys have any questions, this includes everybody. All of you 11 participants.
Hello, guys. Leah here.
Yeah,
I just wanted to add a couple points
thank you.
to that presentation. Yeah, so there is this one great book, 7 Steps to Mastering Business Analysis. I don't know if you heard about this, Barbara Karkenord. I can share with you if you want. And that's actually helped me. So the business rules is like a core component. We all understand there's a flow of data and the business rules. So one another way she's telling like how to identify those business rules is then when you create your workflows and visualize the workflow and then visualize your data data diagram or data model, then all those restrictions or decision points can be a business rule. Whether you should do this or that, is there any limitation? Is there any data validation? All that connection points or decision-taking points can be a business rule. Just maybe to think another way on that. So there are a lot of data-related business rules in some of those finance industries or compliance industries, where your rule will be not more than this or less than this, and so when you're building them, you should, I think, right away think to make them configurable. Because if you would hard code it, but that's already another topic. If you hard code any business rule, then they would like to change it. The business usually changes this a lot, so you would need to change a lot of things. So also when developing, creating business rules, think about configurability. That's all I want to add. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that. That was very helpful. Kind of, you give out really good examples there. I kind of understand what you're saying. All right, let's continue. So general principles for business rules, base them on standards business vocabulary, express them separately from how they will be enforced, state them automatically and declaratively, map them to decision rules to support constraints, and maintain them so they can be monitored and adapted. Right, so that's my presentation. I have one more slide. So this is a recipe box. I don't know you guys more aware of recipe box, but this is something I found. It's a description of business rule title, with a title, description, type, constraint, and the reference. So what a business rule or not business rule analysis looks like. So it took me a while to, when I first saw it, I thought I did research, but I kind of have a solid understanding what how it looks like, how it was written, how it's detailed. So this is an example of business rule analysis. So that's my presentation. Anybody else have a question? Anybody else wants to add anything? Feel free.
I think what you said here is really good. The more you understand like everything else about how all this works, the better off you're gonna be when you get the chance to work with implementers and coders and whatever. It's a good idea to try to learn from them what they need and how they need to think about these things. A lot of the material in here you don't really think about until you see it written down like this. So I've enjoyed going through all this with you all to see things like this. Like what you have here on this slide, fact, computation, constraint, or other things. It's you know these things kind of implicitly, but when you see it written down, it makes it that much more clear. And thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah,
You
I'm great. Go ahead.
You
Proceed.
did a fine job, Ben.
Thank you. I'll only get better. Like I promise. I get more really involved. I'm gonna improve my presentation. I mean, I'm really good with communication, doing presentation. I love doing presentations. I'm a people's person. I don't have any problem with that. But in terms of quality, I'm definitely gonna get better. Like, in terms of like,
Of course, we all do.
good. That's what I think I have to work on. Room improvement. But I just gotta have to get more customized. But thank you. Anyone else has any other questions? It's already 7:20, so I know
Oh,
time
that
is.
was good. I'll tell you the struggle I have. I don't know if Bob and Thea have it too, but sometimes being the old dog, you're ingrained in your ways. You assume people know things. I have a real problem with that when I write instructions, because you write them in a way that, I understand them. I don't have a problem with it, but you have your knowledge base and I don't want to say dumb it down, but you have to make it relatable to people that don't have your experience. So, writing a Microsoft technical, manual for somebody that is, not Microsoft certified and Microsoft certified, two different beasts. And I struggle there. It's like, people don't know what Control-C is. It's like, okay, well, you have to write it that way. So that they understand it. Sometimes it's really difficult to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why my business analysis model is successive iteration. So when you present something to a customer, or any other internal or external stakeholder, you review it with them, see if it works, get feedback and make changes. So that should always be an expected part of your work in every part of an engagement. So, I mean, ideally, as Cliff says, you'd love to do it right the first time without thinking about it. But that's probably not going to happen. And the more people understand that feedback and iteration and going over it again and again may be necessary and is inevitable. Unless you're really under a major time or cost crunch, just stick with it until you do it right. That's the most important thing.
So pulling requirements out of people is sometimes challenging. So as Cliff said, whenever you ask someone to please explain it to you, say, explain it to me as though I know nothing about your business. Because usually as a business analyst, if you're going into a brand new industry or even an industry you used to know, but it's changed, just pretend like you don't know anything. And whenever you write instructions for a fourth grader who knows nothing about your business, so that no matter where they come from, they can follow the instructions and be able to reach to the end. But writing good business rules that everyone has agreed upon as a business rule will help put everybody on the same level footing. Good job, Ben. Thank you very much for providing those two topics for us.
Yeah, thank you. I want to take initiative and I want to be an active participator of the group because I'm very passionate about business. If you're passionate about something, you always want to do something. If you're not passionate about it, you're not going to stick with it. You know what I mean? That's part of life. If you're not gonna, you're just gonna quit or you're gonna half-ass working. But Anyways,
Right.
thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay, Cliff, let's switch over to your presentation. This is the last presentation Cliff is giving, guys, because he's done more than half of our topics.
Wait.
Okay, on techniques, just not forever. He has a whole nother presentation for after techniques. I'm
Hold
sorry, I
on.
didn't mean to give you tachycardia there.
The
I
other,
didn't know what you were talking about. I wasn't ready to present anything tonight.
Bob is going to present, not Cliff. I apologize. for making
Okay.
your name.
Damn, you give me a heart attack. Okay.
I apologized already.
I'm sure it would have been awesome, Cliff. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
All right, so one of the kind of business rules Benner just talked about is decision. So business processes often embed decisions in them all through it. And decision modeling is about repeatable decisions and making them and automating them. So some decisions are one-offs, they're entrepreneurial, they're based on a lot of unknowns and they're fuzzy, and you have to consider needs and emotions and things like that, or inconsistent contexts. And you can't automate those, but things you have rules for, you can automate those and you can map those out. So if we look at this plot here of how data is used in increasing volume and complexity and abstractness over time, for increasingly far out uses. And as you move from mechanistic processes to more AI-based processes, you tend to find that the things that are straightforward and automatable tend to be toward the lower left, and the things that are more abstract and somewhat one-off tend to be more to the upper right. However, the ability to automate more and more complex and abstract decisions is slowly migrating up and right over time. So the BABOK gives a few simple examples of items that are in the lower left. There are simple decisions that we'll talk about, but there are links to previous things we've talked about. Then it involved incorporating higher level calculations and processes into decision making. And they are linked in this article, which is always on my website. I think it was just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about data mining. And there was a diagram there about how a new process that does a higher level analysis in an automated way gets embedded into or integrated into an existing process, just as one example. So decisions are very simple or very complex. So the BABOK talks about decisions being made out of knowledge, which is how you do things. And those are from Ben-Hur's presentation, say the calculations. And then information is raw material and comparative parameters. So those are thresholds, decision points, embeddable rules, and so on. And then you put those two things together and get the decision, which is another kind of, basically it's the result. So let's look at one very simple method in practice. We can write a decision tree, which for a bank and the business might establish rules for how much they can loan and what ages people have to be. So for small amounts, if you're 18, you're good. If you're less than 18, nobody will loan to you. For a slightly larger amount, you have to be 21. And for larger amounts than that, you have to be 25. So that's simple, it's automatable, it's pretty deterministic. Now, optimization routines that, for example, Amazon runs to figure out how to pack items from different fulfillment centers and pack them onto trucks and break one person's order of multiple items into different shipments, or try to make them all one shipment or ship them on different days from different places. I know in the very late 90s, they were doing calculation runs with 60,000 variables. And it's probably way hairier than that now. Of things they do at one time, and they do many of these things going on. So the examples we're talking about in the BABOK and in this discussion are going to be simple, but they can be generalized out to situations that are as complex as anyone can imagine. The BABOK differentiates different kinds of rules. A definitional rule might be the way a calculation is done, and a behavioral rule might say something else about requirement. For example, a business address or a payment address has to match a shipping address. So in your personal life, if you order from Amazon, they'll ship to you if the address on your credit card matches the address they're shipping to. And if not, you may have to go through an extra step to verify things. So a definitional rule will be the things we take into account in the process of making a decision, and the operational rules will go through, and a behavioral rule might involve the actual comparisons and their threshold. So here I write the same calculations and decision-making process as a tree instead of a table. Exactly the same considerations, the same operations, and the same threshold values. And they can all be business rules, as Ben-Hur described. So you find these out during discovery and data collection activities in the conceptual model phase when you're figuring out the as-is project or as-is state. If you're not modifying an already existing situation or system or process, you do it during requirements and design as you're creating something new. Now let's talk about the way all these rules get implemented. So I think it was Ilya who pointed this out. You want to have things parameterized as much as possible. So this first little snippet of code hard codes all the calculations and threshold events or threshold values. So you put in an amount and an age as inputs, and it'll give you a true or false answer as to whether or the person is eligible for the loan. This is in C, but many languages look just like this or very, very similar. So you've got the amounts, you've got the age. Even if I were to keep it this simple, there are an almost infinite number of ways I could structure this code in terms of spacing and parentheses and indentation that people will all fight about with almost religious passion. And you can do things in different orders and still get exactly the same result, and they will all be correct. So as a BA, it's good to be able to define accurate tests for these things that exercise every possible range and boundary condition also, because if you notice these greater than or equal or less than or equal and greater than tests, they all make a subtle difference. So you want to be keenly aware when you're specifying these things of what you're trying to achieve exactly, so that you can define tests that make sure you get the right exact result you're hoping for. Because like you say, there's a million different ways to do this. Now, this is exactly the same calculation, but it looks very different, doesn't it? And this wouldn't make Ilya happier and me too, because everything now is a parameter. And just for an example, I assign all the parameters into variables, right? To start with, but then they can be initialized either directly like this or from a database or from a configuration screen or from a file that's read in someplace or from scraping an industry website. There are a ton of ways to do that. So that's more flexible, more easily editable kind of way of organizing things. And this is generally what you'd prefer to shoot for. So the calculations are always kind of embedded in code. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. But the threshold certainly can be parameterized. And there are situations when low code and visual kinds of processes and tools where you can make it even more clear than this. So again, yeah.
Yeah, Bob, that makes it more, we use that for, we write a lot of stored procedures. You do this so you can actually reuse the code.
Yeah.
So if you have the code already set and you just are pushing in different parameters, like the variables on the top, you can constantly change those without modifying any of the calculations below or having to change the code per se. You're just changing the values you're passing in. And I mean, that's the golden rule right there for a lot of the code.
Right. I know when I build simulation tools, I try to make the fewest number of components that, or each one of which is maximally flexible, so it can be configured to represent a lot of different things. So I always shoot for that. I know that when we made nuclear power plant simulators, we parameterized literally everything, including the values of 1 and 0. Now, if you change those, it'll break stuff in hubris ways, but that's another discussion. Let me see what else I've got buried in here. All right, so one thing is I don't really have any comments in here, right? But it's a good idea to comment code and refer to where the documentation of the code is. And there are multiple kinds of comments. There are comments for every subroutine, every variable, and every line. And you want to balance how that's done. You don't necessarily want to document every single thing you're doing in exhaustive detail. Mostly what you want to do is document how the operations you're doing in code match some requirements someplace. So I have an article here that talks about mirroring up the code and comment and documentation and cross-referencing that and building it into your process in your documentation. And there's a couple links even that jumps to. So feel free to dig around. Yeah, talked about that. So I talked about exercising the code with tests for values in the middle of every range and also on the boundaries of every range to check all the edge cases. So you want to be aware of that. The better programmers and implementers will be more than thrilled to teach you all that stuff and work with you to make sure all that stuff is made clear to all participants. The better relationships you have, all the different working type people have with each other, the better off you're all gonna be. There isn't time in the day for everybody to be an expert in everything. I mean, on the one hand, coders code and BAs BA and managers manage, but unless you're a freak like me who's kind of done enough of each to be dangerous, then, yeah, kind of have to work with each other. I have a couple more links, just like Ben-Hur talked about, data and decisions and calculations are embedded into all parts of the process. So if we do some kind of a process map, there can be decisions, calculations, thresholds, business rules, different participants, different inputs and outputs, different requirements for all of that. And if you're doing a very large project, you might have something that's even tons more complicated than this. What we talked about is a basic set of ideas, and then they can be abstracted and generalized out to more complex ones. And that is all I've got there. Any questions? Low.
Okay, I don't have a question about that, but I do have a question about this thing called hard coding. I've heard people use this too many different ways, and as BAs, we need to understand what it means. When they say the developer hard coded that, they're talking about they put it in the code, so they have to go back into the code and then they have to re-release it to update the code. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's correct.
So what is the alternative to hard coding?
Well, there are
Variables.
two that I go ahead, Cliff.
No. I mean, hard coding for like us, it's like as if you hard code a GUID, like a Microsoft GUID for a value, something that is individual and for that particular system. So if you got to pick that code up and move it from dev to test to prod to, the other environments, having that value hard coded doesn't go over to the other environment. So you might, you have to change it. So that's like a no-no. You want to look up those kinds of values so that when you move from one environment to the other, because most of us, if you're on a big project, you're dealing with a dev environment, a test environment, maybe a beta environment, UAT environment, then a prod. And you want to be able to pick that code up and move it from one environment to the other. So you don't want to stick something in the code that's unique to that environment, and then you move it to another environment and shit breaks.
Okay, so let me give you a scenario. We were working on security, and what we found out is whenever the company started 30 years ago, nobody made processes for everyone to follow for security. And so there would be contractors come in and they'd be told to create this app or create this system. And nobody said for security, follow these processes. So they would hard code the sign in and password into the system. And so I know it was catastrophic when we realized what was going on, because it had happened hundreds of times over all these different very legacy systems. And so the alternative to that would be, number one, have a process for everyone to follow for these very critical things like security. And number two, you can't hard code it. If you have to put it in the system, put it in a table external. Would that be a way to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I jump in, guys?
Sure.
So I'm thinking of an example, right? And let's say we talk about the stock exchange, where the value of a dollar, let's say the Jamaican dollar to the US dollar, changes basically daily, right? That's clearly something that you don't want hard-coded in your system, because that changes all the time. So if you can think of something like that, where it changes frequently versus it changes maybe sometimes versus, okay, it doesn't change any at all. So you may be able to get away with something, hard coding something that doesn't change, like never, but it's still not the best way to go, right? That's what we're getting at now. So
Yes.
once you're starting to put hard-coded values, get all the negative feedbacks that you spoke of. So what you want to do is either stick it in a configuration file, or you want to put it in a database where you're going to read from that database and then manage that database value from a UI somewhere. So let's say that I am the person who sets the stock exchange, the value of the Jamaican dollars to the US dollars every day, right? It is my duty. I have a screen that I can go on and I can set that value. Wherever it is, I set that value. Wherever in the world you need to use it, you can pull it from the database. And if I change it 10 times for the day, you have the latest one because you're always pulling from the database. Versus if I just come and I change it one time, it stays there. No, that's the best way to do it. There are persons who advocate for configuration files, but configuration files tend to be maintained at a certain level. It's not necessarily maintained at the UI level, and it's a bit more tricky to do so than if you just put in the database ready from a database. So you're talking about how well you manage that value that you want to change. And that comes down to, again, what exactly do you want this value to do for you and how often you want it to change and who should change it.
Very
So
good.
roles also matter.
Okay, great. Thank you, Marlon. I appreciate it. Okay, briefly, Bob, will you tell us about the thing that you would like to present next week? And then we're going to go into words that every BA needs to know.
Well, yeah, I'll just go through this very briefly. And I'll point to it more than I will go through it. So we have now covered all 50 business analysis techniques. And one of the things I figured out as I was thinking about this, when I started doing presentations a few years ago, was that some of the techniques we talked about were really were set up to analyze what's going on in solving the problem from a kind of technical and procedural and calculational perspective. So that's the project part. And some of the techniques are really about managing the process part, which is the management aspect and communication and documentation and getting everyone to work together. It's all the meta stuff that happens. And then some techniques are so general, they apply to both. So I tried to differentiate between those two, and I also go through and describe all 15 techniques and choose which what class they fall into, and I have it all in a table someplace like down at the bottom. I also have it in an even more accessible table elsewhere. I don't need to go through it. I will simply invite you to check it out and think about it and see if you agree or disagree on any of them. I'd love to hear your ideas, thoughts, and impressions. And don't be bashful about disagreeing. I might be wrong, and I'd love to hear. So thanks.
Okay, we have about 5 minutes left. I'd like to go briefly through some words that, as a new BA or as a BA that was new to different industries or environments, I was introduced to words that confused me, and I've embarrassed myself a few times. So let's talk about words that you need to know as a BA. One of them I want you to know is legacy. Legacy is something that already exists. In some companies, you've got things that have existed for 30 years. And so they say, oh, that's our legacy system. I thought legacy was a brand name. Oh, well, it's a legacy system. So whenever you integrate multiple legacy systems into something new like Workday, you've got to consider what their abilities were, what their limitations were, and be sure that you don't bring those same limitations into your new solution. Because people will say, well, we can only do these things. We can only enter accounts payable because that's what the legacy system did. So don't bring those limitations into your new solution if that's not what the new solution needs. Let's see, current state and future state. Current state is this is the way it is now. Future state is that's the way it's going to be after we make the changes. Then you can also call it present state, or let's see, present, future, current state, and what's the other word, guys?
As is and to be.
As is and to be. So people can talk about the same thing and use all these different words, but figure out what your department is going to use or what your project is going to use and try to stick to it so you don't use multiple versions of the same thing. As is and to be is kind of a 1980s, 1990s version. Current state and future
Sounds like
state.
Shakespeare.
It is a little bit. Okay, 1680s and 1690s.
Just sorry to interrupt, Tia. I just wanted to add this. As is to be, I just utilized that in my senior design project. We had to, on my senior design project, I just could do a quick, we had to come up with a technology solution at a restaurant. We had to improve the technology needs, and we did a lot of assessment requirements. And then I was one of the VAs there. And then we had to do an as is presentation, like how the technology is at the moment. By doing complete analysis. And then we had to do a 2B. To be was after what we decided to improve the technology. So an as is would be before and after. It's like a before and after picture. You know how you take a before and after picture? So exactly. So I did that in my senior design project. I just wanted to add that. So it was very helpful. Like you can actually
could it
once you
be
really apply
Ben?
the knowledge, is very helpful.
Very
Sorry,
good.
Ben.
Sorry,
Sorry,
go ahead.
guys. Ben, could it be that you were basically following a model that was given to you at that time? So we're talking about basically is a language update.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
because
what we did.
I'm familiar with that as well, as is and to be.
Exactly. So if you do that like this, like our senior design project was as is to be. Literally, like the first semester was we had to come up with we had to do a complete analysis, an as is project, how we're going to improve the requirements, and to be the second semester was a complete how we're going to implement the project. So that was good pointers I wanted to point out. But go ahead, proceed. Thank you.
Okay. What other words do you think that other BAs need to know, guys? There's predecessor and successor. If you have been into the PMI vocabulary very much, or project management, predecessors are things that have to happen before, and successors are things that will happen after. So whenever you're talking about requirements, you need to identify what the linkages are so that you be sure that either in the process it's a predecessor or successor, or in the development it's a predecessor and successor. Many of the tracking tools like Jira will allow you to link tickets so that you can identify what the predecessors and successors are of those tickets.
Scope.
Yeah. Okay, every BA needs to know what scope means. So scope means everything that's impacted by this project. If it's outside of this project, it's out of scope. You need to also define not only what's in scope, but what is out of scope so people aren't confused. And you don't want something called scope creep, which means it wasn't in scope, but we've added it because it makes a really good idea or it's going to help. Scope creep is illegal. Just assume that you can't do it. And if it's something that needs to be done, let somebody start a new project to do that, unless you get buy-in from everybody. Because with scope creep, there's this thing called, in PMI, there's this thing called the iron triangle, and it's time, money, and manpower. Time, money, and manpower.
Quality of features is the third.
Okay, then say all three sides for me, Bob.
Time, money, and features, basically.
Time, money, and features. Okay, so
Or
if you're
quality, you can have it fast, cheaper, good, pick 2. You can have it super fast, super cheap, or super good, pick 1.
So if you increase one of those things, you've got to increase at least one of the others. And that's why you just don't want to mess with scope if you can help it. Keep this, the scope was determined for a reason, and it may have been that it was determined prior to having all the knowledge. If that's the case, it's your job to champion the change, but you have to go through all the proper channels, and there's probably a change management process you got to go through, which is a formal way of saying don't do it. But if it really needs to be done, fight for it. What
Well,
else do we need to
some
do?
also tend to apply more hard and fast in waterfall. The whole point of Agile is you're doing discovery as you go. So
True.
if there's a fixed time or a fixed amount of resources, you're basically agreeing to develop a
None of
solution
my time.
using your resources until you run out. You
Mhm.
just go as far as you can. Or you say, if I only have X amount of time, and you know what you need, you have to expend all the resources you need to get it done in that time. So
That's
it's
one reason.
triangle, it just floats a little bit
I don't have time.
differently in different contexts.
Right. The agile theory is basically, that's why you do the highest priority things first. So you get the highest priority things done, and the lowest priority things can fall off the map. It's okay. That's why they're the lowest priority. Okay.
But clients, when you're dealing with clients, you got to watch scope creep, because they'll always
That's
want it,
true.
and they want it for free. They want it
They
included.
do. There are many times in prioritization, they'll say it's all equally important. No, it can't be. It can't be. Okay, we are at time. We will come back next week, and Bob is going to present his information, and we'll see if we can, if there is any extra time, we're going to fill it up with cool stuff like this, of things that we think every BA needs to know. But I have no doubt that what Bob has is going to be quite engaging, and you're going to have lots of questions and clarifications. So I will see y'all next week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your participation. It makes it a whole lot better whenever you are including yourself in our presentation. And I appreciate the
Thank you very
hands
much.
clapping. Okay, see y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.